Hey, good evening, everyone. State Representative Emanuel Chris Welch here. Thank you all for joining me for a very important Sunday night conversation. We're talking tonight about surviving COVID-19. As you know, COVID-19 is a virus that's going around the world, and it is part of a global health pandemic. As of today, the United States has had about 18 million cases of coronavirus, really just short of 18 million. And 317,000 Americans have died since this time last year and since the global health pandemic began. 317,000 Americans have died. Here in Illinois, we have had over 900,000 cases of coronavirus, and we have lost 16,407 Illinoisans since this global health pandemic began. May their memories be a blessing. We are now in the second surge of this virus, and we are just learning today that there is a new, more contagious strain of the virus going around. So we're having this discussion tonight because we want people to know that we are survivors of COVID-19. You can survive this if you get it, but we also want you to be careful and take precautions and try to avoid it if at all possible. Tonight, I am joined by three of my friends, and the four of us have all experienced COVID-19. I'm honored to be joined by the Honorable Mayor from Forest Park, Rory Hoskins. He's a first-term mayor, but he served as commissioner over there a couple of times, extremely involved in the community, not just in Forest Park, but all over the district and the state. Served with me as a Joe Biden delegate in this past DNC convention, and so honored to have Mayor Hoskins with us tonight. And Jessica Jackson, honored to have you on the show, Ray, and community organizer, community volunteer extraordinaire, one of the founding members of the Best of Proviso. And I got to tell you, if you don't know what the Best of Proviso is all about, you haven't been paying attention, because they are doing some amazing work in the community, including today they were out teaming up with the men of the 13th Positive and the Brown Brothers and the Salute Foundation, and in an annual toy giveaway for kids in need in the community, and just doing some fabulous work. And my little brother in Alpha Phi Alpha, my little brother in life, grew up with this little young man in Bellwood, and he worked for me in my state representative office before he just blew up and now works for the federal government. I can't tell you what he does because it's G14 classified. Henry Norris is here, and we're going to talk about surviving COVID-19. How you guys doing? How's everyone doing? Let's start with the mayor and go around the horn. Mayor, Ray, and Henry. How you guys doing? How you feeling since you've had COVID-19? Mayor?
Well, first, Representative, thank you for having me on this evening on the broadcast. I'm feeling great. I'm fortunate enough to consider myself fully recovered. I'm back to doing my occasional exercise routine, carrying out functions, no longer feeling the fatigue that the viewers will hear about a little later in this broadcast. My wife also had it, but we're both, like I say, fully recovered. So thank you for having us.
Excellent. Thanks for being here, Mayor.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Chris Welch. I'm Jessica Jackson. I feel okay. I contracted the virus on November 16th, so I'm still feeling the aftermath of COVID-19. I'm still feeling tired. I'm having these little anxiety attacks in regards to being isolated, because I'm not used to being isolated. I'm usually being out in the community and out doing something, either with with the community, something with the family, or doing something. And so what I'm feeling right now, today was my first day ever going outside since November 16th, besides going to work and being sent home. So I'm pushing through.
Henry, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I just want to say thank you for inviting me and everyone else on this call, and taking this time to use your platform to be transparent about this serious virus. But I contracted the virus back in June. I'm just happy to be back at 100%, back into my normal routine and my workouts. And I'm glad that dry cough went away. But it took about 2 months for the cough to fully go away. So 100% though, I'm great.
Yeah, you know, these three have been folks that were checking on me recently and uh, telling me how to get through my battle with COVID-19. But as you guys all know, I started experiencing the symptoms the day before Thanksgiving. I had a really bad sore throat, not one like I haven't had before. So I had immediately started keeping my distance from the family. My wife and kids never got it. Thank God they didn't have any symptoms. They tested negative. But Thanksgiving and that Friday after, that Saturday after, I just felt awful with body aches, chills, low grade fever. Eventually tested positive on that Saturday and immediately isolated from them in our basement, stayed away from them for over 10 days, completely away from them while I dealt with it. And on December 9th, I did test negative, and I came out to go to Springfield this week, be a part of the Electoral College and other work in Springfield. But other than that, I've been home, still basically, taking it easy and resting up because the fatigue is certainly something you have to deal with as a part of this. And it's a fatigue like no other fatigue. It just really hits you where you're doing a lot of napping and just a lot of laying around because your body is still trying to recover. So we want to share these stories with you because we think it's really important that everyone understands COVID-19 and the effects that it has. I want you to be able to recognize the symptoms and what we all did to treat it and things of that nature. So please feel free to share this video with your friends in your feeds. They may not be friends with me, and this may be some information that's very helpful to them. I'm talking with the mayor of Forest Park, Rory Hoskins, Ray Jessica Jackson, and Henry Norris. And please share this feed, and we're going to share some knowledge with you for the next half hour or so that we believe is very helpful. I want to ask you, Ray Jessica, tell me, I know you just said today was like the first time you've been out for almost a month, a little over a month, actually.
Month and a half, yeah.
Yeah. What were the symptoms or the first signs that you knew you possibly had COVID-19? Were you symptomatic?
Well, I did not have a fever. I never contracted a fever at all. I had congestion. My nose was running. My eyes were watery, and I felt like I had a sinus infection. But
so these restaurants, and people don't understand why restaurants and bars are closed. Like, one of the things they do is they're taking your temperature as you enter. But you never had a temperature.
I never had a temperature throughout my entire process. I never had a temperature ever.
Henry, what were your first signs? I'm just curious.
My first signs was the no taste, no smell, I would say. Body aches and chills too. It kind of all came together. Started off, my first sign was a cough, a rapid cough I just couldn't stop coughing. And I was like, well, something's not right. And then it went to body aches and chills, and then the no taste, no smell. Every day it was like a new symptom. So the third day, my smell and taste was going away.
Because we're in the midst of this global health pandemic, did you immediately suspect COVID-19, or did you think you were just getting the cold, flu, what?
So the first day, I know I have bad allergies here where I live. I thought it was just my allergies being triggered, maybe from yard work or something like that. And I went to the urgent care, and they was like, "Oh, we think you have a sinus infection." I was taking my allergy pills and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, maybe it's a sinus infection or something like that. Maybe it's allergies being triggered again right here in the springtime when it does trigger. But ended up getting tested Juneteenth on that Friday and got my results back Tuesday. And it was COVID-19. So
wow,
real.
Yeah.
Mayor Hoskins, let me ask you, I mean, you're mayor, you're in and out of a village hall, you're probably around a lot of people because of what you do. What were the first signs that you thought you had COVID-19 and you probably should do something about it?
Well, Representative, you mentioned earlier that you and I were both Biden delegates. So my symptoms became apparent on November 8th. You may remember that on November 7th, the media generally called the election for Joe Biden. So that evening on the 7th, my family and I watched, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, and we were very festive. That night, I exceeded my general 2-drink limit. I'm celebrating outside, socially distanced around a fire pit with 2 close friends. I woke up the next day at noon. My mother used to say that nobody in America with melanin had any business sleeping past 10 a.m. So, here I am waking up at noon, and I was just dead tired, and I couldn't understand why. So my wife was yelling at me, you had too much to drink, all this kind of stuff. And, I'm drinking 7-Up and trying to, get it back together, juice, hydrate. But by 5 p.m., 6 p.m., I'm still as tired as I've ever been.
Wow.
And I consider myself to be a fairly healthy person. So at that point, I said, this is COVID. And the signs were that, you mentioned also, I come to Village Hall every day. I've done that during the pandemic, tried to be careful, wearing masks. We marched together in June, right? In the marches from Broadview to Forest Park.
Yes.
And we had been careful. But here in Village Hall, sometimes people indoors, they take off their mask. They may be sitting 10 feet away from you, but you really don't know how the virus, stays in the air and whatnot. So the short of it is that several people, out of the staff of 12, I think about 6 of us came down with COVID all around the same time. But for me, the fatigue was the worst. I presided over a village council meeting on the 9th. It was one of the most miserable experiences I've ever had. A fever, fatigue, but still having to conduct a long public meeting via Zoom.
Yeah.
I had gone to urgent care earlier that day, but this is in the big rush. And so at that time, there was a shortage of tests. So they would only test you if you were symptomatic. And they examined me. They listened to me explain my symptoms. But they said, we want you to come back 2 days later because we don't want to have a false negative or a false positive. We feel like it's more reliable if you come back. So anyway, I came back first thing on that Wednesday, I believe it was the 12th. And I got my results late that evening. This is the River Forest Urgent Care through Loyola. And the last thing I'll say is that, the period between November 8th and November 15th for me was, it's just full of fatigue, some fever, eventually lost, sense of taste and smell, but that was minor to me. The fatigue was the worst. And like you, the fatigue lingered for probably a good almost 2 weeks. They cleared me to go back and to, work and whatnot, I think on the 17th or 18th. But for a good week, until we got through Thanksgiving, I felt pretty bad. So, and I consider myself fortunate. So I don't wish COVID on anybody. I called a cousin of mine who I'd spent some time with on the 6th and let him know. And of course, unfortunately, he had also contracted it, and then he gave it to his fiance. And then unfortunately, I passed it on to my wife. But it came from Village Hall in Forest Park. So we have to be disciplined about wearing our masks. Just because you're indoors, it doesn't exempt you from the virus and the transmission. Even if you're 6 feet away, 8 feet away, it lingers. So indoors is, be very careful.
Hey, Mary, you actually said something a couple of times that really hit home with me, because I actually contracted COVID from a family member. I like to say that I've been really careful, even though I've been out and about in my role as state representative. I typically always have my mask on, keep distance and things of that nature. But it was from someone in our family circle who goes back and forth to work at the Ford Motor Plant on the south side of Chicago, who brought it home. and it went around, and 6 other people, in addition to me, in our immediate circle, contracted COVID. Thankfully, we're all on the better side of it. But I just remember being at Granny's house and sitting at the kitchen table, and because it's Granny's house, I'm comfortable, and I take my mask off. I'm convinced that it was sitting there one night having tacos, talking to Granny and Auntie, and that's when I exposed myself and I got it. My wife and kids never got it, but 6 other people in our circle did. And so I think the lesson that I learned is that mask is everything. You have to wear a mask. And as we approach, Christmas this week and New Year's next week, people are going to try to gather, against the advice of the experts. But the biggest thing I can say is you got to wear that mask. I think we were all fortunate. It sounds like we all had probably the mild, moderate version of COVID-19. But we're at what? 16,400 Illinoisans and 317,000 Americans have died from this. And, we don't want anyone to get it. If you get it, we want you to have the mild case.
Right.
So we don't want it to take someone's life. Let me ask you guys, the symptoms that you first experienced, Henry, when you felt like you were coming down with it, what were your symptoms while you had it? Let's share those symptoms as well.
So during the time that I had COVID-19, I didn't have the fever. I didn't run. I didn't have shortness of breath, but I did have a cough, congestion, runny nose. My nose was running like crazy. I probably went through 3 boxes of tissue, body aches, the chills, and the body aches were super. It was very extreme. It felt like needles were hitting me. It felt like I played a game of football, and I haven't played football in 20 years probably, right? And I had this burning sensation in my nose. So whenever I would get ready to go to sleep, or if I got up real quick, this sharp burning sensation went through my nose for about 5 minutes, and then it just went away. And that will only happen whenever I laid down and got back up. So it was times I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sleep like like sitting up. I'm not going to lay down completely, because when you lay down, I think that's when the virus is trying to take over your lungs. And that's when I had the most, difficult time trying to sleep, was when I was like fully like laying down. I felt like I was being smothered and things like that. So it was definitely difficult to sleep. I don't wish this on anyone.
Yeah, Mayor, as you were going through it, the worst period of it while you had it, what were the symptoms that you were experiencing?
The worst time, fatigue, body aches, like Henry was saying, and some fever. I'm from the South. Representative, you have Southern roots. Us men, we have these traditions. I try not to take Advil and aspirin if I don't need to, but this was one of those times when I really needed to, right? So my wife said, take some Advil, and maybe for 2 days I took the medicine. Otherwise, I just kind of ride out the fever. But the fatigue and the aches were horrible. That was about a 6-day kind of situation. Loss of taste. That wasn't a bad thing. I don't mind not tasting the food. It's not good not to have an appetite. So I was happy when my appetite came back. And I probably overate during Thanksgiving, but that was to make up for the COVID impact. I'd left too much food in the house. But in all seriousness, I was very worried about my children getting COVID. Like I said, my wife had it. And, we talk about staying in our bubble, right? The public health authorities are telling us to celebrate the holiday with members of our immediate household, but they advise us, not to possibly expose our elderly relatives. So, I'm not driving to Texas to see my mother for Christmas, like I would very much like to. I have a son coming from Florida. He's in the military. He's 23 and he thinks he's going to see his friends. I said, you're not seeing any friends. There are no holiday parties this year. You're not going to gatherings. You're going to stay home with us. And so having to wear a mask in my own home so as not to spread the virus to my family. That was a very bad part of COVID as well. So like we all say, we don't want to see any of our friends and loved ones get this virus, because I didn't enjoy wearing a mask even when I slept, so as not to transmit the virus to my family. That was horrible.
Absolutely. Right. You know, while you were going through it, the real hard time, what were those symptoms? But I also want to ask you, because I was checking out your social media. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing to treat your symptoms.
Well, I'm also a type of person that works out, and I work out at least six days a week. And my symptoms that I had, like I said, I started off with the congestion, the runny nose, like Henry was saying, my nose was like dripping, like it would not stop. I stuck tissue in my nose just to keep it from running. And but every day was a different symptom. Like the next day, I couldn't smell anything, and I noticed that because I had lavender. Essential oils. I had a fountain in my room that I drip essential oils in just to keep the air from being dry, and I can smell those essential oils to try to get my sense of smell back. I use Dr. Bronner's lavender soap to take my showers, just to open up my senses. I never lost my sense of taste. I never lost my appetite, but I had these headaches. And I'm like you, Mayor Hoskins, I do not like taking Advil. I don't like taking Tylenol. I like to know what's going on with my body. And so I didn't take anything, and I took that headache. I had night sweats. I mean, to the point that I couldn't even sleep on a pillow. I had to tilt my head a certain way in order to go to sleep. I was like, please let me go to sleep. And it was just hard. Like I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, why am I up? I'll fall asleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, up at 6. I'm like, what is going on? And it's like, are you fearing something happening to you, or is your body actually waking up and not sleeping and not functioning properly? So you don't know if it was COVID or was it your anxiety of actually having the COVID. I also took different vitamins. I had sea moss. My girlfriend dropped me off her sea moss. My friend Lakeisha dropped me off her sea moss and her ginger shots. I had one a day. I had a teaspoon a day. I did black seed oil. My sister brought me that. I had everybody coming. I took magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E. What else did I have? Zinc, and some of it I melt down in tea. I melt all my vitamins down in a hot cup of tea, some herbal tea, and I drank it instead of actually taking it by vitamin. So all my stuff was natural products that I took in. I also had a blender in my room that I made my smoothies with my fresh fruits, my protein shakes, my vegetables. So I took every pain that came to me, and I just refused to take any type of Tylenol or any type of Motrin or anything for my congestion, because I wanted to know what was happening to me. I wanted to know when my head was hurting. I wanted to know when it was subsiding. I wanted to know when it was coming back. I wanted to know if my body was hurting or where it was hurting. So that was my remedy, and it worked.
You know, it's so good to talk to other people who experience it, because as you guys are talking, you reminded me of things that I was going through. You know, I posted a video on my YouTube about tips for surviving COVID-19 isolation and what, you know, things that I was doing. But as you're talking, there's things that I did that I didn't even mention. For instance, like starting on the night before Thanksgiving, I started sleeping upright. I haven't slept laying down since the day before Thanksgiving Eve. And I've been sleeping upright to kind of, you know, control a cough. And I'm still doing that. For a while, I was sleeping on a recliner and not in bed, but I'm still sleeping upright. You know, Henry, you talked about the burning in your nose. I had that sensation while I was in isolation. And so I started taking, like the Afrin, and, there were a couple of times you just have to, keep spraying that stuff because that was the only thing that made my burning go away and my nose feel better. But I think the biggest thing, and if you check out that video I posted on YouTube, tips for surviving COVID-19, I would say when you're going through it, you want to make sure you're, checking your vitals. You want to check your oxygen levels. You want to check your blood pressure, because, everyone says knowing your oxygen levels is so important. I also was told by all of you and so many other people, my mom, my mother-in-law, and all the nurses that I know, stay hydrated.
Drink water. Yes.
And just like you guys, I don't like to take a lot of medicine. I take enough. But for those body aches, Tylenol was a miracle cure. I needed to take that Tylenol to make those body aches feel better. So it's an experience, and please feel free to go to my YouTube channel and check out that video on tips on surviving COVID-19, because it's very helpful. And I didn't come up with that stuff on my own. It's people gave me advice on what to do. I tried it, and it was all very helpful.
Yeah.
I see we're almost at the 30-minute mark. We got about 4 minutes left. I want to ask you guys a few more questions before we wrap up. And Mary, I'll start with you. What advice would you give those out there about COVID-19? Tips on how to avoid it, what to do if they get it. Let's go around the horn if all of you can answer that.
To avoid it, be very disciplined about mask wearing, particularly indoors. If you're in a position of authority, you can lead by example. When you wear that mask yourself, I think it may influence others. And if you're in a position to actually, direct others, and you have the authority to do so, then please do. One of the mistakes I had here at Forest Park was to kind of not really be firm in setting that policy. I'm working with some people who are considerably older than me, and if they just didn't want to wear a mask, then I just kind of said, well, I hope for the best. But, a bunch of us came down with COVID, and, I consider that to have been something I wish I could change. So we have to be disciplined, we have to be careful, and we have to follow the science. That would be my advice, Representative.
Ray, what advice would you give?
My advice is similar. Wearing their masks, make sure they wash their hands, sanitize as much as you can. If you touch a doorknob, if you go in and out the bathroom, even though you washed your hands in the bathroom, make sure you sanitize when you get to your office or whatever type of workspace that you have. And just to let people know that it's not always the fever. And I know a lot of businesses, as Mr. Welch was saying, that it's not always a fever, and you're going in and out of these places and they're checking your fever. Only because you don't have a fever, that does not mean you don't have COVID-19. And you can feel sick, and you can feel ill, and you think it's a sinus infection, because that's what I thought. And I never thought I would ever catch COVID-19. I don't put this on my worst enemy at all. And it's just be careful. And if someone contracted it at your business, please let your employees know that someone contracted it. You don't have to give them their name. The IDPH says you must tell your employees that someone contracted the virus. The law is do not say their name unless they're give you permission to do so. So please let your employees know that someone has this deadly virus. This is not something to play with, and it's not something that you want.
Exactly. Henry, let me ask you for advice, but also ask, have you done anything different since you've had COVID-19?
Since I had it, I don't hang around any unfamiliar groups or people that I haven't encountered in months. So people that, you haven't seen in a while, just keep it virtual and just keep your circle small. Stay socially distanced and just stay around your immediate people that you've been around from the beginning. But anybody from the outside that you haven't seen in months, I can say just keep it virtual for right now and play it safe that way.
You all are giving some great advice. And I'll tell you, the mayor, you mentioned talk about leading by example. There's a vaccine out there now. We're seeing members of Congress getting the vaccination. We saw first responders getting their first round this week. The vaccine is out there. What's your plan? When it gets to you, your turn, you plan to take the vaccine?
I plan to take it, and if you decide that you want to organize a public event where the mayors in your district are taking it, then I'll stand with you and take it publicly with my fellow mayors, and we'll follow your leadership on this one, Rep.
Hey, you got it, because the minute they tell me I can get it, I'm getting it. We got to eradicate this thing, and the scientists, and hey, a Black woman came up with this vaccine, by the way. We got to lead by example and take it. Ray, you gonna take it?
Honestly, I have said that I was not. I have stated that, and my explanation was, when it comes to our community, is it going to be what they give to other communities? Yes, and because even if I can get off subject a little bit, like even our grocery stores, like the Aldi's out in Lombard is totally different from the Aldi's that was in our neighborhoods, the food that they distribute to us. So I did say on my social media that I was not going to take it, but by the time they get down to us, I might change my mind.
I hear you.
That's the honest truth, right? Do I feel safe taking it? No, I do not take the flu shot. I have never I took the flu shot once when I was in the military, and I vowed to never take it again because the way it made my body feel.
I will tell you that someone like me, I've got high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. I had the flu shot and I had a pneumonia vaccine, and every doctor I talked to say that they really believe that helped me.
That helped you, yeah.
In this instance. And so I saw Congressman Davis today. He took the vaccine, and so I was really glad to see that. Heck, if he'll do it, we should all do it. Henry, what's your plan?
I think by the time the vaccine trickles down to the regular people, besides healthcare professionals and the elderly people in nursing homes and things like that, I think they will make their corrective actions on some of the vaccines. So I do plan to take the vaccine because I miss my old life. I'm over COVID. I'm ready to get back to traveling and getting out of this isolation mode.
That's right. Let me ask you guys again, because the experts are all giving advice on what we should be doing for Christmas and New Year's. Henry, I'll start with you and we'll go around the horn. What's your plan for the holidays? Are you going to listen to the experts and keep it simple?
Yeah, I'll just keep it simple, stand put with the immediate family, and we will miss the family dinners and inviting the extended family over and friends. But you're sacrificing something for a greater good. You're looking long term, so just stay virtual, keep it small, and then next year it'll be bigger and better.
Mayor,
I'm staying home with my immediate family. My son's home from college, and I have one more coming home. But it's just going to be us. No parties, no big gatherings. Just want to follow the public health guidelines. And if I could just add. It didn't have to be this bad in the United States. We shouldn't have lost this many people in our country, and it's because, for the most part, we didn't do our part in terms of family units. We want to be free and have these freedoms to just go and gather in big parties, and that's not wise. So they say restaurants limit your gatherings to 6. There's going to be 6 in my household, and that's pretty much who I'll be around.
Ray, final word on this topic?
Yes, this is just going to be my immediate family. My daughter's coming up from Atlanta, just one of the twins. The other one she works for the post office, so she'll be working. And that's it. I don't want to catch this again. You can catch it again. You can catch it twice. So I don't want to feel that pain anymore. I don't want to go through that congestion or that body ache. It's a totally different feeling for just having a sinus infection. It's a totally different feeling from just having the flu. So yes, it would be just me and my immediate family. I no large gatherings at all. I get anxiety now. Like, there's a lot of people. I'll be like, okay, gotta go.
Yeah.
So
I hear you guys loud and clear.
A lot of anxiety.
You know, I'll tell you, I'm from a big family. My wife's from a big family, and normally Christmas Eve, we have so many folks in the house that, you lose count of all the folks around. But this Christmas Eve is just going to only be the four of us, and we are going to do things virtually.
yeah.
We're going to be Zooming a lot this week and next week, and trying to stay as safe as possible, because you're right. You don't want to go through this again. Before we leave, I want to thank everyone that tuned in. We had a good crowd that tuned in. I want to thank Proviso Township High School District 209 board member Rodney Alexander for watching and commenting. I want to thank Senator Mike Hastings, all the way from the South Side, watching us and tuning in, and thinks we had a great forum. And thank my friend Representative-elect Denise Wang Stoneback from the Skokie area for tuning in. We've had a good audience here tonight. I want to let these folks get back to their families because it's a Sunday night, but I want to make one quick comment. I hope you've heard us tonight. We shared these stories voluntarily. We wanted you to hear what we all went through with the holiday season among us. It's important that all of us are celebrating as safely as possible. Instead of gathering in person, please, the health experts recommend connecting with your family and friends virtually to reduce the spread of COVID-19. And we don't know where this thing's going to go, especially with this new strain out there. Your favorite holiday traditions might look a little different this year, but sharing a meal, opening gifts, or watching a movie together over Zoom can still feel special. Stay safe. And if you need anything, you can always reach out to me. I'm on any of these social media platforms. Send me a message. I'll try to respond to you. But please, wear those masks, wash your hands, and watch your distance. Until then, God bless all of you. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you all. Take care.